If you're just getting started in dice making and you feel like you don't know what the hell anybody's talking about, this video is for you. Hey, I'm Sam of Artemis Dice Company. Welcome back to my super beginners dice making tutorial series. Leave a comment and suggest a name for this because that's terrible. Before you can really get started in any new hobby, it's really important to understand what people are talking about. Every hobby, every new thing you're going to try is probably going to come with its own set of unique terminology, and we certainly don't have a shortage of that in dice making. So I thought it would be really helpful to go ahead and dive into some of the terminology before we're knee-deep in a tutorial and you have to pause the video because you don't know what the flashing is. And I don't mean dice terms like dirty 20 or natural 1 or Thaco. We are going to be talking about dice making terms, things that you're probably going to hear that without clarification could be confusing to you. Let's tackle some of the really obvious ones first. Resin. Resin is liquid plastic, and epoxy resin is going to become plastic by combining a part A and a part B. Since we're tackling resin terms, let's go ahead and move on to pot life or work time. These terms are usually used pretty interchangeably. They basically mean the same thing. The pot life is how long that you have to essentially work with your resin before it starts to get sticky and thick and just really, really hard to work with. Voids. A void is just a hole. It's a hole in your dice. When you are working with resin, oftentimes bubbles will get trapped just under the surface. Sometimes these can be patched, sometimes they cannot. A lot of times it's going to depend on the position of the void in the dice that you are working with and how severe the void is, how big it is. Very small, tiny voids are fairly common. Shrinkage. Resin shrinkage is another term you are probably going to hear, and this basically just means that while your resin is undergoing the chemical reaction that makes it hard, some of the resin is going to shrink. The shrinkage rate should be indicated somewhere in the instruction manual or on the box or on the bottle of resin you're working with. Be aware that some resins are going to have a higher shrinkage rate than others. Usually the lower shrinkage rate is going to be better if you're working with big pieces. Overfill your resin because some of it's going to shrink when it's curing, and so you want extra. And that's why we overfill our molds, because of shrinkage. Since we're talking about resin, I do want to cover one of the worst things that can happen when you're working with resin, and that is called a flash cure. A flash cure happens when the chemical reaction that hardens the resin gets like sped up for one reason or another. I don't know all of the things that can cause a flash cure, but I will say from my experience, I tend to get them in the dead of the summer when it is super, super hot outside, or I get them in the middle of the winter when I've had to warm my resin to make it thin enough to work with. So I think maybe when resin gets hotter than room temperature, it can maybe cause a flash cure. I've also had flash cures when I was working with just like a ton of resin. I usually work in pretty small batches, but every now and then I'll make a much larger batch. And I find that I have had more flash cures when I'm working with a lot of resin than when I'm working with a little bit of resin. Be aware, if this happens to you, you will probably be tipped off first because your cup that you're working with is going to get very, very hot, like too hot to touch. Resin does get warm while it's curing, but this isn't something that you're normally going to notice during your work time or your pot life. With a flash cure, your resin's going to get really hot really quickly, and then it's going to start to get really thick, and then it's going to start to cure. I had a flash cure not long ago where I literally pulled out my mixing stick and it was just a giant ball of resin, and I knew it was far too late. Let's talk about molds. So we got into a little bit about molds in the first video, but I want to talk about the different types of molds very, very briefly. For the sake of terminology, you should know that there are generally 3 types of molds that people work with. The first one is a cap mold. Cap molds are very beginner user friendly, and they are individual molds. So the D20 is going to have its own mold, and the D12 is going to have its own mold, and the D8 is going to have its own mold. And A lot of times these can be a little bit better for beginners because each mold is not going to be holding as much resin as a full slab mold. So this can alleviate some of the problems that are caused when your resin shrinks and you don't have enough of it. Slab molds are the molds that I work with most of the time, although I do think that cap molds have their place, and we'll, again, break that down more when we start talking about molds. But a slab mold is when you're putting your full set of dice into one mold. So you've put all 7, 8, or 9 masters into your mold, and you're just making the full dice set in one mold. That is a slab mold, and it's what you're going to see me working with most of the time. The third type is sprue molds, and I feel like these have become a lot less common when I first started dice making, and for the most part, I don't mess with sprue molds. They're not my favorite. I don't like making them, and I don't like using them, but essentially they are going to be a mold where you've either still got a cap, which is probably more of like a combination mold, but in most cases, a sprue mold is like just one single mold, and you've put your dice master in it, and then you're sort of like creating just a little hole that you're pouring into, and that's the sprue. I'm doing a terrible job explaining them because I don't love them. The only time you'll see me use a sprue mold is when I am working with my large dice, and those are still kind of combination cap molds, sprue molds, which means I still put a cap on it, but I do create a little sprue to create almost like a reservoir so that I can overfill my mold, since resin shrinkage is going to be a lot higher when you're working with a larger piece. So you'll see me use combination sprue molds, but you'll never see me using just a standard regular sprue mold. I find them confusing and I don't understand how they work. Pigments. We are talking about the colorants used to make your dice not clear, right? So some pigments are going to include mica powder, alcohol ink, resin dye, pigment paste. Some of these options are going to be opaque. Some of them are going to be translucent. Some you can do either, or you can do like a semi-opaque. Pigment is what we're going to use to color our dice. Inclusions are anything you're going to shove inside your dice. So glitter, foil, Angelina fibers, Angelina films, mylar, buttons, 3D printed resin inclusions. There's all sorts of stuff. Anything that goes inside the dice, strips of paper, whatever, that's an inclusion. Balance. Nope. People get really worked up over dice balance. And I'm here to tell you, it is not the big deal that the internet makes it out to be. When we are talking about dice balance, we are talking about essentially whether or not dice are rolling fairly. All I care about is if the dice are balanced enough so that they are statistically random. I am not making dice for a Las Vegas casino. Dice will never be perfectly balanced, even in a Las Vegas casino, because using the dice makes them not balanced. All I care about is if your dice are going to roll random. And that's all you should be concerned about too. So when people go to the comment section and they freak out because I put an inclusion in a dice, or the glitter sank, or it's not going to be perfectly balanced. Nothing's perfectly balanced. They're just not going to be ever. Don't worry about dice balance. It's actually really hard to make dice that are not random. Usually you're going to need heavy weights or little washers or heavy magnets. It's not going to happen from glitter sinking to the bottom, or a 3D printed ghost that you put inside your dice. And that's dice balance. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Pressure pot. Pressure pot is what you put your dice in or your molds in to cure, to shrink the bubbles so small that you can't see them. This is essential, in my opinion, at higher level dice making. When this is a hobby you're doing all the time, when you want to sell dice, definitely. But essentially, it's just a tool that is used to help you create a more perfect finished product, and it does so by reducing the bubbles. You seal it, you fill it with air so that it cannot escape, and you cure your dice. I was really afraid of pressure pots in the beginning because I thought it was gonna like explode, but I will have you know that's never once happened to me, so. Raw dice. Raw dice are just dice that come out of your mold. You haven't done anything to them. They still need to be cleaned up, polished, and they are literally raw. Flashing. I actually have some. Flashing is what comes off usually the top of your lid or the top of your mold, and it's just excess resin that is usually, hopefully, very thin, and it basically happens because we need to overfill our dice molds, but the dice isn't going to use all of that resin. So that's what the flashing is. Raised faces. Raised faces on dice occur usually because there's too much flashing. It's too thick, and it's not necessarily because you used too much resin. I have had raised faces on dice where I didn't have enough resin. It can happen because your house isn't level. That happens to me a lot. I have an old house, it's crooked. And so more resin will pool on top of maybe half the mold. We will talk more in this tutorial series about how to avoid them. But if you hear me talking about raised faces, it's just a face on a dice that has too much resin on one side. These can sometimes be fixed, sometimes they cannot, but that's what they are. Sanding and polishing are both terms that we use when we are talking about the finishing of dice. So sanding is when you use sandpaper or polishing paper. I do prefer sandpaper for this step. And you're going to be cleaning up any faces that have scratches or scuffs or any marks from the mold that would prevent the dice from being as aesthetically pleasing when they are finished. So that's really all you're doing. You're smoothing out those flaws, but when you are done, you're going to be left with dice that are probably pretty dull. So you want to make them sparkly or shiny, as the case may be, and that is where polishing comes into play. For polishing, I use polishing papers, or I also sometimes use my Dremel or my rock tumbler. It's just going to depend on what I'm trying to accomplish and how long I have. Oftentimes, if I'm in a hurry, it's always going to be my Dremel. Inking is when you put ink on the dice. When raw dice come out of the mold, the numbers are not inked, so they're not readable in most cases. So you just need to fill those numbers with something. I tend to use acrylic paint or acrylic leather paint, but there are other things that can be used. Most popularly, other than acrylic paint, I think people like to use alcohol ink. That's never been one of my favorites because you need to keep a respirator on for that process, and I just don't love that. It's also not as user-friendly because if you make a mistake, it's not necessarily as easy to clean up. But we will cover that in a later episode about inking. We'll talk about all of the options. But for now, if you hear me saying the term inking, I'm probably talking about painting the numbers of the dice. That's all I have for you this week, but make sure you tune back in next week. We're going to be having quite a bit more fun. I'm going to go over some of the basic resin making supplies that I think you should invest in for beginning dice making when I review some resin starter kits that you can get on Amazon. If you have any questions about any dice making terms that I did not cover in this video, please be sure to leave a comment and I will do my best to answer all of your questions. If you liked this video, please click like. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please make sure you are subscribed to this channel, and I will see you back here next week for more of my super beginning dice making tutorial series. Seriously, we need a better name.